Foundations! A new Magic the Gathering set has just come out. This set is geared to return us to the roots that made Magic the fun and engaging game that we love. I'm Buddy.
Hey, I'm Braden.
And today we're going to take a look at what's coming back, what's changing, and what it means for the players.
Well, I think the first thing we need to know for the players is what is Foundations? I know we went over it a little bit in the intro, but how is it going back to the roots? How is it going to what makes Magic great?
Mostly, so with every new set, usually we introduce a few new mechanics that make the set different.
Yeah.
This one is just reintroducing some of the best mechanics that we've had throughout Magic's history.
So things like Prowess, things like Flashback, Threshold, Raid.
Yep.
Shadow Legends.
Those are the big ones, and then a bunch of other ones.
Oh, yeah, there's a few of them, but those are like the main highlighted ones. So I guess we'll jump into those. What Prowess is influential in Magic history because it has, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, X happens. It's most noticed in like Monastery Swiftspear, which is a mono-red creature, 1 mana for a 1/1 or a 1/2. I can't remember.
I think it's a
1/1.
1/1 haste. It might be 1/2.
Yeah, it has haste. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gets +1/+1. So it's great in red deck wins, in mono red burn. Because what you do is you play it turn 1, you attack. Turn 2, you do lightning bolt, and you attack for 3. You have now done 10 damage by turn 2. The person's halfway dead.
Big, yeah, huge chunks, huge damage, real quick, real fast. If you don't play a creature in the first turn or two, you're way behind.
Right. Another great card we said Flashback is Snapcaster Mage, which Snapcaster Mage has a ton of fun history behind it. There was a tournament that was run. The winner of the tournament got to make a card in their like, and this person made Snapcaster Mage.
Oh.
And it's a small tangent. He originally wanted to make a land that was pay 4, 2 colorless, 2 blue, discard the land, counter a spell.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we got Snapcaster Mage instead, which is arguably stronger because now you get to do Lightning Bolt, play Snapcaster Mage, which gives a spell in your graveyard flashback, to then cast Lightning Bolt again. And it's just a great power play.
Yep, you get an instant speed creature and recast a spell, which is just really, really good value. There's also Threshold, which cares about your graveyard being filled up. If you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, this card does something special.
Right, and that paved way for a lot of graveyard shenanigans. You get things like Dredge to fill your graveyard. So instead of drawing, you can take a Dredge card from your graveyard, put into your hand, and then put cards from the top of your library into the graveyard equal to the Dredge number. So Stinkweed Imp, which is Dredge 5, right? Mm-hmm. You put 5 cards in the library or in your graveyard, and you get Threshold pretty darn easily. It's really cool with cards like Tarmogoyf as well, which its power and toughness is related to the card types in your graveyard. So it just has a lot of kind of umbrella effect, where it's the main term.
Some of my favorite mechanics interact with the graveyard, and this kind of fuels all of them. Mm-hmm. There's also Raid is a big one. This is if you've attacked this turn, this spell does something special.
Right.
Like draws extra cards to refill your hand or create tokens.
Right. If you dealt damage, create a 1/1 Goblin token.
Just really incentivizing attacking, which is a big part of Magic.
Right, and something that's really hard for new players.
Yeah, it's hard to know when and how and what to do with attacking.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people might just skip their combat step, and Raid is made to help you with combat. But there's also, with Foundations, a rule change involving combat. It's something that seems really small, but I've seen some confusion on it, so we might as well kind of address it. And that is that they've changed the combat order step or the damage order step, right?
Yeah.
So in the past, you would deal damage and you could respond to it. Now that doesn't happen, which has some effects, such as we have some cards here. I guess we'll start with, let's say you're being attacked on your turn, and they have what is that? A Centaur Courier, which is a 3/3 creature, and you have 3 1/1 birds, right? If you block, that's 3 damage, 1 to each of your birds. They die, but so does the Centaur.
Yeah. So to get into the nitty gritty, if you block, you say I'm blocking with these 3 creatures. The attacking player then says, okay, I need to assign lethal damage to these creatures in whatever order. So they might say, I'll do 1 damage to this bird, 1 damage to this bird, 1 damage to the last bird. Everything dies.
Right.
That's different now because there's no discrete step where they say, I'm doing 1 damage to this, 1 damage to this, 1 damage to this, 1 damage to this. It's now, as soon as damage goes through, they're like, okay, damage. There's no chance for you to respond with something like Charge, which is an instant that gives all of your creatures +1/+1.
So what would happen in the past is you attack, you block with your 3/1/1 birds. They'd go to deal damage, and the attacking player does 1 damage to each bird. In response, you give all of your birds +1/+1, making them all 2/2s that have 1 damage on them. None of your birds die. The centaur dies.
That's very, very good for you. Bad for the attacker. Now, you say, I cast charge, +1/+1 to all my creatures.
Before damage is dealt.
Before damage is dealt or assigned or anything. And now the attacking player has to say, oh, I guess I'll do 2 damage to this bird since 1 damage doesn't kill any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So now you still lose 1 bird.
Which is a very small case that might make effect. 90% of the time your combat's going to go the exact same. In this instance, and some like this, it would change a little bit. But for the most part, it's still, I attack, I make my guys bigger. Now let's do damage.
Yeah, it's an interesting change because it's small, and 99% of the time, most people don't even know that there's a discrete step for this.
Right.
But it has the potential to really change certain scenarios.
It's a little bit different.
Curious to see how it goes.
Yeah. Then there's some of those reprints, right, that we might have. So some of the huge cards that are just influential in Magic history in general. One of them is what is it?
Omniscience.
Omniscience.
Omniscience, if you're trying to spell it. That makes it easier.
Which is 10 mana, 7 colorless, and 3 blue.
Huge.
It's an enchantment, which means it's going to stay on the board for a while until it gets removed. And it kind of breaks the game because it says you can cast spells from your hand without paying the mana cost.
Which, since it's in blue, that means 1 or 2 spells in your hand are probably going to be to draw you more cards. So you basically just get to play as much Magic as you want while your opponents are still capped by 1 or 2 spells per turn.
And this is a huge one in Commander specifically, because Commander, you get to have bigger turns, more expensive cards, which means all of those 7, 8, 9, 10 mana take another turn after this one cards, you get to play for free.
Yeah, extra turns, this gets really, really bad.
Yeah, draw more cards, extra turns, draw more cards, extra turns. But there are different archetypes, and that's not the best in all of them. Sometimes you're an archetype where you want to attack a lot. You have a lot of creatures, you're trying to go crazy, all your creatures have raid on them. If that's the case, you might hate seeing this card, Day of Judgment.
This is a card I love casting.
Oh, yeah.
Because I typically play decks that are letting the opponent attack with a bunch of stuff while I dirtle around and try to do something cool way later in the game. This one helps restabilize. It's called Day of Judgment, and it destroys all creatures, wiping the board, which if you don't have any creatures is just really bad for your opponent, not bad for you at all.
Which is great to play with Omniscience, right? If you have an Azorius, a blue-white deck, I mean, you're set up to control forever. You cast all the spells you want for free, you kill all their creatures, it's easy.
Very, very good.
Right. Another quick way to win the game is to be quick, right? We talked about it a little bit with Monastery Swiftspear. Another way is one that we mentioned in our first Magic video, which is Llanowar Elves.
Yeah,
This is one being reprinted, which is just a 1-mana, 1/1 elf that you can tap to add 1 mana. So it's pretty much a creature that gives you more resources.
Yep, makes it so on turn 2, you have 3 mana available, and then it just ramps up from there, literally.
That's crazy, right? Speaking of ramping, going crazy, getting a ton of value, our next enchantment that got reprinted.
This is a big one.
Yeah, huge. I mean, this one's been that one that, once again, is huge in Commander, and has had several reprints that do similar effects, but this is one of the OG. This is doubling season. So it's enchantment. Do you want to go ahead and read off what it says?
Yeah, I mean, if an effect would create 1 or more tokens, it creates double that many. And if an effect would place 1 or more counters, it does double that many.
Which is insane.
So you go wider, you go bigger, and a lot of the reprints of this that are like other cards that try to do the same thing usually leave off one of those effects or have a little bit more limitations on it. This one kind of just hits everything.
Yeah, because there's, cards in green specifically that love to do +1/+1 counter to each elf you control. Now it's going to be 2 +1/+1 counters to each elf you control, right? There's also something that poison counters.
Yep.
In Magic, one of the ways to win, or the main way, is to take them from 20 life down to 0. You can also make it so they can't draw cards on their turn. There's no library there. If you can't draw, it's over. You lose the game. Or you can get 10 poison counters, and you die. With this one, that's a token, and this would double it, right? And you just attack with your poison creature. Instead of getting 1, they get 2. Instead of getting 3, they get 6, and they die very, very quickly.
Yep, it's so good. It hits so many things, and it's just a classic for that reason. I think it's like a $40 card or something. So
yeah, if not more. That's why they have to reprint it. This next one is another one that's once again popular in Commander. You might be noticing a theme that Commander is one of the most popular ways to play, and for that reason, a lot of these reprinted cards are for that, right? And this is one that a lot of people kind of consider as a must include just because it's easy, it has value, and you can put it in any Commander deck, and it's Solemn Simulacrum. It's a 4-mana 2/2 that when it enters the battlefield, you get a ramp, you go find a land card, put into play
into
tapped.
play is big.
It has to be a basic land, right? And then when it dies, you get a draw card. So this is a great way to ramp a little bit if you're in a sacrifice strategy, or if you just need a chump blocker. When it dies, you get extra benefit.
Yep. I mean, you already got the benefit for playing it, and then it dying just gets you more benefit later. So
yeah, just fantastic.
Very cool. Another big Commander card is Swiftfoot Boots. It's back. It's an equipment that gives a creature hexproof and haste, which both of those things are good depending on which one you want. Sometimes they're both good on the same creature. Sometimes you just want the hexproof to protect your commander while you dirtle, which is what I would probably be doing with it.
Oh, yeah, like one of my favorite commanders to play is Soul Herder. Right, and it's a 3-mana creature. At the beginning of my end step, I blink a creature, and then whenever a creature goes to exile, it gets a +1/+1 bonus on it. So it's great to give it hexproof, which means that my enemies cannot target it. So I can just, for free, every turn, get extra value. I can bounce a creature, it comes back, I get value. I bounce a Solemn Simulacrum, I get a land, I get a land, I get a land. And my commander gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
And it can't be touched by your opponents.
Yeah, fantastic. It's a
Very
great card.
Also good if you're playing a big creature every turn and you want to just attack with it right away. You can equip it for 1. It's pretty cheap.
Oh, yeah.
And then we've got a Boros Charm, which is a
Yes.
really cool one. It is red and a white, so it's
Boros.
cheap, but it also just does so many different things. It can do 4 damage to a target player or planeswalker, so straight to the face. Good for burn. It can protect all of your permanents, giving them indestructible. And then it can also give a creature double strike until end of turn.
Which is amazing. I mean,
super flexible, super powerful. Protect your stuff, hurt them. Awesome. It's a classic for a reason.
right. Such a great card. And with all these ones, it's kind of cool to see them all coming back. Because here soon, I'm sure you've probably heard about the changes as well. They're making Secret Lairs sets here soon.
Oh, yeah. They're making them legal.
Right. And they're going to have, I think in 2025, they're going to have sets. They're going to have a Spider-Man, a Marvel set, right? Where everything is themed around that. So we're going to be moving away from the Magic verse. And we're going to be going into these other mediums to kind of explore the worlds that they have, which is here, there. Some people hate it. Some people like it. Some people want to be able to cast 3 different versions of Spider-Man and have the fun effects for it. And that's cool. You know, a Spider-Man themed deck. It's similar to like a Goblin themed deck, a tribal deck. But I think it's fun to have this foundation set right now just to kind of get to play the Magic that we all grew up with before it transitions over. With that, some people have had a little bit of speculation on this one. I'm kind of curious what you think about it. Some people are saying that this set Foundations is like a send-off to Magic.
I mean, I don't know what comes next. I can't see the future, but I wish it was, this is what we're doing from now on.
Yeah.
Return a lot of the classic cool stuff and then keep going from there. Because we've listed a few, but there's a ton of other reprints and just new cards that kind of encapsulate the same spirit. I wish that's what it was. I don't know, but
right, because
we'll see.
Magic has such a fun lore to it, and I know a few people that aren't into Magic the Gathering. They don't play the game, but they're into the lore of Magic the Gathering, and it's kind of sad to see Secret Lairs take such a large portion of Magic right now, because that specific lore, that world is kind of taking a backseat, it feels like. But with that one of the main formats we play is a commander variant called Pauper Commander. PDH.
The difference is that instead of a legendary creature being your commander, it's an uncommon creature, and then the rest of your 99 deck is commons or cards that have been printed at common.
Right. So we have picked a few of them on here that might be good commanders that are coming from this set. So the first one is Buddy's pick for the set.
Cloud Blazer is 3 white blue for a 3/2 flyer, which is fine, or a 2/2 flyer. Sorry. The cool part about this guy is that when it enters, you gain 2 life and draw 2 cards.
Right.
Which is, very doable in white and blue, like you were mentioning with Soul Herder.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of cards that'll blink a creature, which is exile it and then return it. Just fill up your hand, gain a bunch of life, and then use the cards that you just drew to stop your opponents from doing what they want to do.
And I think we can go into why that's important. Is we mentioned earlier, one of the ways to win the game is bring you from 20 life down to 0. In Pauper Commander, you have 30 life instead. And this right here just gives you more of a cushion. If you can blink it, you go 32, 34, 36, so on and so forth, making it harder for you to kill or to die. And then a way to get an advantage in the game is something literally called card advantage, which is having more cards at your disposal than your opponent.
Just gives you more options, gives you more things to do with your mana, and more cards to draw cards.
Right, and this one is a perfect example of that. Is you might be able to play it, you get 2 extra cards, a lot more advantage now, and you kind of just go wild with it. What are some of the ways you would want to close out a game with this, though? Because you can have more card advantage, which is great, and you can get more life, which is great. But ultimately, you need to win.
I mean, a classic is you gain a bunch of life, you draw all these cards, you slowly build out your mana base, and then you start returning everything that you are afraid of or that stops you to your opponent's hand. A good way to do that is, what's it called? Capsize, which you can do kind of infinitely.
Right, especially if you have the mana for it.
Yeah, which you can do with all the other tricks in blue and white. And then you just have a couple of creatures that can slowly kill your opponents while they don't get a play, which is fun. And then you can even use...
For you. For me, I like that kind of play.
Yeah.
And another one is combo, right? So you have I'm going to slowly whittle you down with your... I just said the name of it. Capsize. Or you could play a Mnemonic Wall, a Ghostly Flicker, and a Peregrine Drake. Peregrine Drake, which is a 5 mana 2/2 flyer. Not a great card, but when it enters the battlefield...
It is a great card.
You untap up to 5 lands.
It's a silly card.
It is. Ghostly Flicker is 2 colorless, 1 blue, and you blink 2 creatures. Up to 2 permanents, technically, because it could be land as well, or enchantments. And you blink Peregrine Drake, comes in, you untap 5 land. You only spent 3 mana to cast Ghostly Flicker. But you could tap another 2, just adding more mana to your mana pool. And if that other card that you end up flickering is a Mnemonic Wall, an Archaeomancer, a Shipwreck Survivor, I think it is, that card says when it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. So the basic combo is I'm going to tap 5 mana, and I'm going to use 3 of it to cast Ghostly Flicker, targeting my Drake and my Archaeomancer. When the Drake comes into play, I untap 5 land. So I'm going to untap 5 land. I still have 2 of it floating. And when Archaeomancer comes in, I'm going to grab our Ghostly Flicker again.
Yep.
You now have 2 mana positive. You have the 5 lands you started with. And you can do that an infinite number of time, getting 2+ mana each time, and just going up, 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 and up, and up. Once you have infinite mana...
You get all the cards, you cast all the things, and you close out the game.
Especially with this one right here. Once you get, 100 mana, you don't need to worry about flicking your Drake anymore. You can just flicker your commander to gain 2 life, draw 2 cards. Gain 2 life, draw 2 cards. Until you find your win condition, which might be your Capsize. And you just return every single land and creature your opponent has. And sure, you just have a 2/2 and a 1/2. But over the course of, 10 turns, you can deal 30 damage to them pretty easily.
Yep. And then if you get any sort of X and some cost creature that gives a bunch of counters, you have infinite mana. You can make X huge, smack them for 1.
Oh, yeah.
So many options. Just make sure you don't draw too many cards and then are unable to actually finish the game. And then you made yourself lose because you have to draw from an empty library.
Yeah, you can definitely, speaking from experience, mess up an infinite combo and lose the game.
You can.
I chose a commander that doesn't have as many of those infinite combos, but it's still in blue, so it does have an option to do an infinite combo. And this one would actually really benefit from the one we just barely talked about in the same way of letting you win out a game. But this one is Belmore, the Battle Mage Captain. This is it? So 1 blue, 1 red for a 1/3 creature that has flying, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until end of turn, which is very similar to Prowess, right? This one card essentially gives all of your creatures pseudo prowess.
Yeah.
Giving them all +1/+0, and Is It in particular has a ton of cards that do the same thing, right? Red, you get Monastery Swiftspear. You can have, I forget the name of it right now, but it's 1 and Is It. And it's a 1/4. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery, it gets +3/+0.
Jeez.
Insane, right? There's another one that's red. Whenever you cast instant or sorcery, it gets +2/+0 and it already has trample. So you can really add up on this one. And this is a deck that could very, very quickly just kill somebody for casting basic spells.
Yep, you play a couple of creatures like you just mentioned, and then you have a handful of cards that are like 1 blue mana, effectively draw a card with your selection, and then you get another card that's 1 red mana, buff one of your creatures, and draw a card.
Oh, yeah.
And so while you're drawing cards to play more cards to draw cards, all of your creatures are growing by +1/+0, plus whatever they grow by, and they all have trample. I mean, you're going to smack through pretty hard after a turn or two.
Yeah, and just
It's
go
done.
crazy. One of my favorite combos, or just not an infinite combo, but a good combo in this, would be Tandem Lookout, which is a 3 mana 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you're going to pair it with another creature. What I would choose, if I could, would be Thermal Alchemist, which is a 2 mana 0/3, and it says tap, deal 1 damage to each opponent.
Which is
Pretty
nothing
good.
special. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, you can ping them down, slowly kill them over time. But it also says whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, untap Thermal Alchemist.
Very good.
And then Tandem Outlook says whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, draw a card. Now, it's not combat damage, it's damage.
Any damage,
Any damage.
which red does plenty of.
Oh, yeah.
And then thermal.
Thermal Alchemist.
Oh,
yeah,
weird.
which is so good, especially because in Commander, you usually play multiplayer. In Pauper Commander, it's primarily a 4-player format, so 1v1v1v1. When I do Thermal Alchemist, I'm hitting 3 people, drawing 3 cards, dealing 1 damage to each of them. And then I cast an instant or sorcery like Ponder, which lets me draw a card. Does a few things. It gives all my creatures +1/+0, right? Also untaps my Thermal Alchemist. So now I can tap it, deal 3 more damage, draw 3 more cards. And I get to, just with a few mana, very quickly go through my deck, get a lot of card advantage, and potentially keep it going, just doing a little bit of damage each time. And I can make some of those creatures we talked about before really, really big, and then I can attack.
Yeah, you only need a couple of those creatures on the battlefield, draw a bunch of cards doing a bunch of damage, and then a big attack to close out the game.
Yeah, which you can do very, very quickly with Kiln Fiend, which is the mono red one. I remember the name of it now. And just go crazy. You can also cast Teamer Battle Rage, which is a instant spell, 1 colorless, 1 red. Target creature you control gets double strike.
Oof. Big creature, attack in. Maybe you cast like 5 or 6 spells, which is very easy to do at this point.
Oh, yeah.
You're, plus, it's probably like a 6/6, 7/7 creature or whatever. Attack with double strike doing 12 damage. And then you
And
cast Fling,
Yeah.
and you throw it at their face to finish them off. I mean,
Yeah, so good. It's such... You can go crazy with one. This is a ton of card value off of just small little spells. It's a great way to play, great way to make people mad at you too, because it's like, okay, Braden can pop off at any moment. As soon as he gets 1 card down, he can kind of go crazy.
so target Braden.
No, that's not how it goes. But this set has a ton of fun things a ton of options to explore. I'm very interested in knowing what you guys would build. If you guys play Pauper Commander or even just normal Commander or any other deck whatsoever, go down to the comments below. Tell us what you would build, how you would build it. I'm very curious to see what that's about.
Yeah, should be good.
All right, well,
Go play Magic.
do it.